Okay. Hello, beautiful souls. It's a beautiful day in the natural world. My name is Farah, and I like to make videos about how the feeling of the sacredness of nature within us supports and nourishes us to feel everything else we need to feel in our human experience in order to evolve and expand and flourish. So today we're talking about fantasizing about a better life or a better world. Have you ever found yourself in moments daydreaming or night dreaming about life circumstances that you wish were different? And they may be really sort of elaborate dreams or fantasies about your ideal job or the ideal relationships or the ideal financial circumstances, or, insert life circumstances here, or peace in the world, anything that is beyond what we might be experiencing in our physical reality in this moment. And when I have found myself in these moments, which I definitely have, I notice how there is a feeling that is connected to whatever the thing is that I found myself sort of daydreaming or fantasizing about, right? So, for example, in work, it might be, oh, if only I could do this job, then I would feel, and then the feeling for me was something like, I would feel relaxed, I would feel more at ease, I would feel more like myself, I would feel like I was living with integrity, I would feel less burnout. I had all of these hopes for the ways that I was hoping to feel, or an experience that I was hoping to have in life itself. And fantasizing or sort of daydreaming about the circumstances never actually brought about that experience in reality. And when I really looked at these parts of me that were really very creative in the, sort of ideal circumstances for the world, or whatever it was, right, in life that I was daydreaming about, when I really looked at these parts of me, I saw that they were only happening in a very specific place in the mind. And so the mind was really doing beautiful work, creating, an ideal world, an ideal job, ideal relationships, an ideal environment. And it was mind work. And I noticed that it was staying in the mind, and it wasn't really going anywhere else. So I wasn't actually feeling into it from my heart, and I definitely was not experiencing this in an embodied way. And I also noticed how exhausting it was to think about things that I was hoping for without that energy actually being directed into creating that experience, or even taking a step in the direction of what it might look like to have that experience actually materialize, sort of in my experience of physical reality. And then I asked myself, why is that? Why is this experience staying in my head? Why is it in the mind? Because it actually seems like I have a very clear vision. And I wonder if you found yourself in those moments where there's actually a sense of connection to whatever it is might be this ideal life circumstance, right? There's like this vision for what something would look like. And sometimes, and often, it's a very beautiful and sincere vision for the world or relationships or your work, or maybe a creative or artistic project that you might be exploring. And so I was wondering why I was staying in the mind. And then I asked myself, well, what would happen if I actually felt this? What would happen if it dropped into a place in my heart where I could actually feel it? And then I noticed something that I hadn't noticed. I noticed a feeling of fear. The fear of actually holding, of receiving these beautiful things that I had created from the mind space, the head space, and the fear that was around actually receiving them in the heart space. And that was a real epiphany to see that there were experiences or blockages, you could say, between the sort of real life creation of these visions, of these hopes that were happening in the mind. There was a block to them accessing the heart space and being felt. And there was also, the sort of next level was a block to them being felt in an embodied way, really feeling into, well, what would your muscles and bones, how would your posture be? How would you walk if you were living that life of your dreams? How would you move through the world? And I noticed those blocks, those fears, even a sense of rigidity in the body. And yet, I saw how the energy of my conscious awareness was continuing to be dedicated to the processes in the mind only, to envisioning only in the head space. And it would be a kind of circular envisioning, right? It would just sort of keep going and keep going. And when I come out here into the natural world, beautiful things don't feel stuck only in visions in the head. Beautiful things feel felt in the heart space. Beautiful things feel felt in my body, in this body. And the stuckness of processes, of stories, even of really beautiful creations in the mind, suddenly starts to branch out into the heart. It suddenly starts to branch out into the body. And those fantasies or those daydreams about how things could be in my own being, in work, in relationships, in the world, those fantasies of how things could be, suddenly I'm looking around and I'm experiencing a level of beauty that is reality. And it kind of shakes the mind in its relationship with the heart and the body. It shakes everything up. It shakes up this idea or these fears that are linked to visions of beauty settling into the heart and being really truly felt, and settling in to the body and being really truly felt. It shakes it all up to be really whole and really felt and embodied and really real. And when I experience this wholeness of being, this wholeness of beauty, this very real physical experience, I get to go back into my day-to-day life with this energy of real beauty happening right now and right here. And I go back into those moments. And when I catch myself thinking in that thinking place, envisioning, oh, if only this could be like this, something comes up from the sacredness in this natural space. And that something comes up in me and it goes, oh, well, this is not an intangible or an inaccessible process. This is something that maybe we could create. Maybe we could embody. Maybe we could take a step towards that direction, because I've taken steps out here and I've witnessed nature taking all of its tiny, tiny steps in the direction of cultivating beauty. Because that's what nature does, right? Nature doesn't sit and think about how things could be. It just creates into how things really are. It makes, there's no sort of in between the thinking and the embodying. Nature just is creation. And so when I find myself in those moments in day-to-day life, I get to bring the sacred wisdom of nature and ask myself, well, how can I step into creation mode? Just like a flower would, or a tree, or a plant, or an animal. How can I step into creation mode? And it might be like the smallest thing, like taking a moment to create the feeling, you know, to go from the head space into the heart space, or to create the embodied experience. You know, how would I walk? How would I move if this vision in the mind were true and here and felt right now? And I am so grateful to the natural world for igniting this energy of creation, of creativity, and the full embodiment of that experience that removes or softens blockages between the mind and the heart, and the mind and the body. Because the mind is a wonderful place, and when they're all working together, you know, the mind, heart, and the body, and the sacredness of the life that we are, really, really beautiful things happen. And so I wish this for you. I wish this deep connection, this knowing of the sacredness of the life that you are. Whenever you find yourself in moments of thinking or fantasizing or daydreaming how something in the world or in your life circumstances could be, and directing sort of your energy into the thinking space, I wish you this sort of opening of directing the energy of our conscious awareness, of our creativity, into these processes of feeling into the heart and feeling into the body, and creating into whatever the current reality is from this sacred and inspired place.